had no experience in restoration or planting or anything to do with landscaping or anything. And they did a heck of a job. And we don't have any browsing over here, but this is a product of 2 years of trying to figure out what's going to survive. You can mix and rabbit scrub, isopama, that's the Coast Goldenwood, and there was about this much water in the nursery, and we had to go to Milpas Reynolds and buy a couple of those big, huge pumps and pump the whole nursery out, save all the plants, and we had to put everything back in the rows and everything. Everything just floated everywhere. But when the nursery was drying out, we found 5 or 6 depressions where it was lower than all the other places. And so in those depressions, we planted more of a wetland plant palette. And on the higher parts, we're doing more of the coastal sage-scrub palette. So you can see over there, there's where the willow is. That's one of the depressions, and then there's one there. But the wetlands plants didn't do well in that depression. But on the other side of that willow, there's 2 or 3 other depressions. And then this was a big depression right in here. We had a rule, no grading. So if we had the chance to, we probably would have dug the depressions out just a little bit more to make sure that we could get wetland plants to grow. But they didn't want us to do any earth moving at all. So that was just the parameters of it all. So I don't know if we want to throw some of these other things in, if we got them, if we want to put in a little bit more lameness over there, or we want to stick with buckwheat.
Well, I think we should stick with the buckwheat and leave Artemisia because they're not going to be needed for the other projects.
Right. But this should, if we keep this watered, this should have 100% covered by the end of the summer. And once we get that, you can see we heavily mulch too. That's another one of our secrets, is mulching.
You're telling them all our secrets.
Well, it's.
What's that?
We just used a flag for a plant. It didn't matter. Right. Sometimes, like Dave
We just told the
said,
kids, pick a plant, any plant of these species, and plant them. Go for it. Be creative.
Often, though, if you're setting up, you have the colors mean something. It's coded to a particular plant species.
Yeah.
This one.
Here we just recycled a bunch of old flags, and we taught the kids how to flag, which is won't do it on this planting, but I guarantee you we'll do another one. But when you flag, you don't want to flag in straight rows like if you're a farmer, right? You want to flag randomly so it looks like nature, but inevitably you'll go down and you'll find straight lines after you flag, and if you try your dangest to not flag in a straight line, but somehow our human brain likes lines.
Some law, I've heard it before. You can try to not do straight lines, but it'll always end up.
You'll always get a straight line somewhere.
Yeah.
I mean, in 20 years of doing this, I still can't flag without going back and finding lines. But we got the kids to practice. And
right here.
What's neat about this project is these kids have been doing parking detail, and they've been doing all these other cheesy jobs for the city and the county, mainly the county. Mainly just grunt work, right? And then they decided, their supervisor decided that maybe they deserve something a little bit better than just weeding and doing parking control at events and cleaning bathrooms and all this stuff. So we brought them out here, and these kids fell in love with this kind of work. They were stoked. It was the highlight of their whole summer. And then they requested that they only come here. So I think we might end up with 2 or 3 kids. Actually, we know we have one at least that should be here today, right? It's in the class, right?
Well, Victor, I don't know what happened.
Yeah, well, you can only do so much, but...
we have Enrique.
We picked up Enrique.
Enrique's been there on a regular basis.
What a...
Eutropium curvaceum. Why is it called curvaceum?
What is the family?
What? Family?
Good question. We have to look it up.
Scrofulariae.
I think Scrofularia.
But this one here was very rare on the airport property when we first started, and it's starting to come back. Yeah.
Just by taking the fabric off, it's coming
Yeah,
back.
yeah, and even out in the runway area, you know, it's once all the weeds got taken care of, this has found a little niche to come back, and it's a fairly rare plant, super psychedelic looking.
Yep, that's Heliotropium herbaceum.
I've never seen this. Does it smell good? Like the other one? This is a California native?
It was originally in the palette, and they revised the palette. As growers, basically what we do is we sit down with the project supervisors and the botanists and look at elevation to function as a wetland habitat, so we change the plant to coastal sage scrub. This has been a real learning experience. You know, when you stay in a project for 8 years, I mean, you learn a lot about a piece of property. And then that gives you the up when another project comes down the road, right? I mean, we should beat out anybody else out here just from our experience. And URS keeps getting the Project Soup contracts because they've been out here for 12 or 14 years, right? So the longer you can stick with
Well, and to go along with that, though, means you cannot rest on your laurels. You have to keep producing, and you have to keep bidding competitively. So there was a maintenance company that lost the contract.
Right. They started off great.
They started off great.
Nature's Image, they're from LA. They were fantastic. They did the install and the maintenance on Area I, and they used their A crew. And then when they got their second contract, they figured they were looking good, and they put their B crew up here. And their B crew did a bad job. And the airport, they're watching us, right? And those guys were out there having too many breaks and doing a bad job. And so now we have Cut and Clean. What a name for a restoration contractor, huh? Cut and Clean. Obviously, this is their first attempt at restoration maintenance.
Second.
What's their second attempt?
Vandenberg Air Force Base.
Oh, they got a Vandenberg contract.
They do the native.
But they
plant
probably should
maintenance.
change their name if they're going to do more restoration work. 'Cause would you hire a company called Cut and Clean?
I worked on the B crew.
You did?
Yeah, and we were a good crew. There was just like 3 or 4 idiots. And
Which crew?
The B crew, the one we got
Nature's
unemployment
Image.
office.
Nature's Image?
Yeah, I worked for Nature's Image. I was here February, May, April. Yeah,
So it was a mixed crew. Then
but there was like 8 of us that were good. The rest were not. No, we were good, and they came at us on April 30th. And here's your termination.
Excellent. Yeah.
Yeah, they
Done.
fired us. No, but we were good. I mean, but there were a few that were idiots.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think the big mistake was somebody drove across the runway or somewhere they weren't supposed to drive.
They drove across the runway. That was a bad thing.
Well,
what
that probably
happened
wasn't
was
you.
There was one guy, but he was with the A crew, and he would drive, and he was the one that did
There
it.
we go. So now we got the inside
His
scoop.
name was Sergio. He had Sergio and he had Caesar. And then
yeah.
they were, and all the
So
supervisors
why
were
did
fighting each
Sergio
other.
think he could drive across
There you
the
go.
runway?
I'm glad